I'm really happy to welcome you all at the Lamo Center. This is the Rapsal room of the Munshi, historical Munshi house, which is 500, 600 years old. So without taking much time, let me do a little bit of an introduction of Mr. Jürgen, who's come all the way from Germany to give this wonderful talk of the experiences he's had for many years of his stay at Hunza Valley, beautiful Hunza Valley, with which we have the historical ties and cultural ties. So let me say a few words about Mr. Professor Dr. Jürgen Wasim Frembgen. A retired senior curator at the Museum Fünf Kontinente in Munich, former professor at the Institute of Near and Middle Eastern Studies, Ludwig Maximilians University, Munich, visiting professor at Quaid-e-Azam University in Islamabad, National College of Arts in Lahore, and Ohio State University in Columbus, USA. Conducted extensive ethnographic fieldwork in Pakistan as well as in Iran and India. His academic works deal with Islam, the Sufi tradition, veneration of Muslim saints, art and material culture, the anthropology of the body, social outsiders and facets of popular culture. In addition, he writes narratives about his ethnographic experiences. Thank you so much, Professor Jürgen.
Jule, namaskar, अस्सलाम वालेकुम. आपके आने का बहुत शुक्रिया. मुझे बहुत खुशी लगती है इस कदीमी घर मुंशी हाउस में एक लेक्चर देना चाहता हूँ और मैं बहुत शुक्रगुजार हूँ लामो का इनविटेशन के लिए, दावत के लिए, खासकर मुनीशा अहमद साहिबा जो आजकल यहाँ पे नहीं है बदकिस्मती से, और तशरीफ मोरब के लिए और आरंदाना बहुत मेहरबानी, बहुत शुक्रिया. bedouin शक एक जहनी महफिल होगी आज. For people in Ladakh, as over there further to the west from Baltistan in what is now northern Pakistan, north of Gilgit, the Hunza Naga Valley branches off not far away from the river Indus, in fact, towards the north, towards the Chinese border. And we have people there who speak Dardic languages, who are Dardic people, also of Dardic stock like here in Ladakh. People speak not Ladakhi or Tibetan there, but Shina. Shina is a Dardic language, many speakers. In addition, we have people speaking Burushaski, very ancient archaic language, not related to any other languages. And of course, nowadays, also Balti people there. And I want to especially focus on the Balti cultural influence, because this is something which is also important for the history of Ladakh. And one should also mention that that part of what is now northern Pakistan has a long Buddhist history, especially in the second half of the first millennium of the Common Era. So it was part of a kingdom called Bolor, and which was a Buddhist kingdom over there. And the Dardic people are found further to the east, over Baltistan, and here lower Ladakh, Dahanu, up to here. So my own contact with this is, I'm very much interested in tradition, because in that area we had kingdoms, and therefore I also, in the introduction I gave, I said these are Sacral Kingdoms. So there were kings ruling until 72, 74, rather independently within Pakistan, and they were thought to bestow fertility also to the country, to the people, to the fields, to the whole entire world over there. We see here in the beginning This is the mountain valley more in the winter time, close to the foot of the fairy mountain, which is the Rakaposhi mountain, 7,788 meters high. So it's a very important mountain. They are almost 8,000 meters high. And I was doing all my research, which I started in 1981, and I pursued that, continued it until 2004. So it was really a long time. I was almost every year returning there and pursuing my research, focusing on material culture, as I worked in a museum and on history, political history, traditions. And I think, like Lamo institution, it is important to be aware of one's cultural heritage. In this age of modernization, we can't do without historical awareness and consciousness. The Pakistani poet Sebai, he once said, if you do without tradition, if you are not aware about traditions, it's like driving without a back mirror, and that can be suicidal. So I think we need to be aware, also the younger generation, of one's history. I need now this pointer, or it's over here, fine, thank you. Okay, so the languages, let me repeat that again, Dardic language, Shina, and Balti, and especially Burushu language is also the foundation for this. Karakoram mountain in spring. This is an agriculture quite similar also. It is based on artificial irrigation on fields, because one can't use the water of the Hunza or Nager river there. It's like here also the Indus river can't be used in that way. Water is coming from mountain streams and from glaciers, and through artificial irrigation we have agriculture based on wheat, barley, millet, and arboriculture. Apricots, raising apricots is very important, and most of the different varieties of apricots are connected with Baltistan. So there were Balti people introducing apricots, raising apricots in different varieties in this part of the Karakoram. Next, please. Yeah, and we have that fairy mountain. Why is it called fairy mountain? This is just not only to attract your interest in that area, but in fact, if we speak in anthropology about sacred kings or sacral kingdoms in that way, it means that in ancient thinking, the king, the authority and power of the king was also based on his relation to supernatural beings, to superhuman beings, to fairies, in fact, to the Tamorachi, as they're called in Barushaski. So powerful fairies, supernatural beings, thought to reside on the highest mountains, on different mountains, but they're thought to have their castles on the Rakaposhi mountain, and that they would give strength and auspicious power to the ruling king. And it was a stratified society, it was a kingdom stratified society. So you had a nobility, a high class of noble persons. It was a state, it was a micro-state. On both sides of that river, which we have there, on that side Hunza, and closer to the Rakaposhi mountain, it is the kingdom of Nager, where I in fact did my PhD a long time ago. And here we have the Rakaposhi glacier also. So we have the king and the ruling family with the princes having their feudal lands and some villages also. It was a feudal system. Then the class of the nobility and class of craftsmen, particularly working for the king and for the needs of the king. And then of a large class of farmers who had only little land, but at least they were independent. It was a kind of, if there are anthropologists among the audience, it is a segmentary state. So there were also power within the clans and lineages, and the kinship groups. They were in some respect controlling the king also. And then of course also lower class people of blacksmiths, musicians, much like here in Ladakh as well. Next please. And here we have that, let's see it more, here we have Kashgar, Yarkand, and we can very interested here also in the local history related through the Nubra Valley towards the north, the famous caravan trade, in the olden days led from Lhasa to Leh, from Leh to Yarkand, from Leh to Kashmir, to Srinagar, and here we have Kargalik and the direct link to Leh as well. Here is Skardu for your orientation. Leh is even here on the map, so that is really nice for your own orientation. Leh Kargil, where we have a lot of Muslims, Dardik people, and Balti people as well, and then Skardu. Gilgit in the north is a center like Leh in North Pakistan, and here this is the area of Nagar and Hunza, these former small states actually. Next please. We are in the heart of the western Karakoram. Houses on the left side, a view of the high Ulta ranges. The peaks are already above 6,000 meters, 5,000 meters here, and these artificial channels bringing water sometimes through wooden tubes to the fields. Next please. Nagar is of course the Sanskrit word Nagar. Nagar is a place, a jaga. But I differentiate it. There are thousands and hundreds and thousands of Nagar in the whole of India, but there's only one state in northern Pakistan, what is now northern Pakistan, called Nagar. And also it is interesting, just yesterday we spoke to a gentleman from the Khwaja family, Arkul family, whose forefather from the famous Radu family here, who have left their writings also, that, what was he, Abdul Wahid Radu, he studied in Srinagar in Tyndall Biscoe College together with his companion, school companion was Mir Shaukat Ali Khan, the later king of Nagar. The last king of Nagar studied together with Radu, with the Radu family here in Srinagar. So there is a lot of common contact. Also the people from the Nagar family there, Imami Shias, they were educated in Kashmir, they got their education there, and still there are families from the royal family of Nagar living in Srinagar. And these are from a special clan of Koshotkuts. In front of the Imambarga, local Imambarga with very nice carvings also, colored carvings. And this is where I started, 81, and then up to every year for longer periods, 3 months every year, and later on a bit shorter. And they have these kind of topis, and you might have seen I'm wearing myself such a kind of topi, which is also found in Lower Ladakh, among Kargil area. Next please. And wearing nowadays shalwar kameez. They had woolen clothes in the olden days, hardly to be seen nowadays. And this in front of the right side, you see the village are still very much the olden ways, stone houses. This has also changed over the last decades. These photographs are from the 1980s, but a lot of cultural change has taken place, much like here. And on the left side, on the right side, this is a mosque, a small mosque. In fact, only one square bare room with a mihrab, and then in front a veranda. The veranda can also be a bit more enlarged, but it's very basic. Next, please. Yeah, and you see this is about 3,200 meters high, 3,000 meters, and the Ulta range, which is the mountain range, is part of that western main Karakoram range. And this is the highest settlement. I became very much interested in those days in the history of settlement. So I took down notes on, here's some space to sit, please have a sit there, and yeah. So I was speaking with the old people in the villages, taking down their life memories to learn about their own history when their forefathers were migrating. But because they were also migrating from the south, sometimes they said we were coming from Iran, from Afghanistan, from the area of Peshawar, from that area of Indus-Kholistan close to the Nanga Parbat, and even, as I mentioned, also migration from the east, from Baltistan, from this part. And Balti, as we know, is a Tibetan dialect. It's part of the Tibetan language family and the westernmost Tibetan people, you can say. Next, please. Yeah, for instance, Tsaya, one of these many villages, there were all in that small kingdom, 32 villages like Saya, only inhabited 80% by people from Baltistan. And they still have these memories. Our forefathers came from Skardu, Shigar, which is part of Baltistan, over the glacier sometimes, and they got land there. They were invited by the king. There was also intermarriage between the states of Hunza and Nagar and the royal families of Baltistan. So when the Balti princesses were coming, they also brought craftsmen with them, goldsmiths, silversmiths, weavers, and they were working then particularly for the royal families. This is in Uyun Nagar, in the big Nagar. Uyun is a word in that local archaic Burushaski language, unrelated to any other language. Very strange and a very special thing. Next, please. Yeah, and here a view in winter of one of the three most ancient villages of Hunza. This is the castle of Baltit, meaning built by Balti craftsmen, built by Balti architects, where people coming from the east, and there is a certain really similarity in the buildings we have around Leh and in many parts of Ladakh, not comparable of course to the large and magnificent buildings over here, but at least in a more reduced shape it is similar. We will see that. Royal families who came also from the south, who were outsiders as well, long time ago, Indo-Aryan people. Next, please. Yeah, and we have as just few examples. I'm showing you very characteristic examples for the tradition. An Imam Bargah, a Shia assembly hall on the left side, which is no more. So many changes are made, and there was not that awareness like here now I see in Ladakh that you preserve these buildings around this old part of town. This was only later there. And on the right side you see a part of the decoration, a bay window from the Baltic fort, but made later. Balti craftsmen were also mediating Kashmiri influences of Kashmiri architecture. These working what we called azure, lattice work. This is generally done model Kashmiri architecture. Next, please. Yeah, and that should be somehow familiar to people living here in this part of Ladakh. Royal Castle Altit is about 900 years old. Baltit is a bit 600-700 years old, these two castles. You see this artificial lantern roof, you can see in that fade up. Of course, this opening can be closed. And this is from Altit, and watchtowers, which we have all over this area. I did another research further to the south in what is now northern Pakistan, or what they say Gilgit-Baltistan, in Harban Valley, which is a tribal area where there was no police, nothing, because blood revenge is the order of the day. Everybody is carrying a Kalashnikov. It's a very dangerous area, so to speak, because of the honor system, shame and honor system, but inhabited by Dardic people speaking Shina language in Indus Kholistan. And there, at the time I was doing my fieldwork over there in Harban Valley, near the Nanga Parbat, you can say, that was in the early 90s, late 80s, they were building watchtowers every year, new watchtowers, because they had to defend themselves against their enemies. I was also once caught in the crossfire there, and innocently I didn't get to the ground immediately, so it was quite dangerous because these blood revenges go on and on over decades, and one is waiting for one's enemy to kill him. But no comparison to the northern parts. There were states, you had states, micro-states in the Karakoram Raj, about 14, and no comparison to these tribal lands further to the south, which is then melting with the Patan area. Next, please. Yeah, and you will see now the Sacral Kings of Hunza on the left side, near Jamal Khan, who was the last king who ruled until 74 in this fort of Baltit. Here and here, he's wearing not a crown, but a cap with an agraf, what we said, an agraf, jiqa. which is also a sign of or symbol of royalty among the Mughal rulers, in fact. One was looking towards the Mughal Empire for such kind of symbols of power. And on the right side, you might see the king is there, and he has a plough with 2 oxen and ploughing the first part of the field in springtime, bestowing fertility to the land, to the livestock, to the land, to the people, to the entire country, because of his strong relations with the protective fairies. Next, please. With the buddy day. Yeah, and might be unexpected for you, such a photograph. I myself would say unbelievable in a way. This is not the last Mir of Nagar, as I mentioned before, who studied in Srinagar, but he is his nephew. Also, Raja Karim Khan also studied in Tyndall Biscoe College in the 20s, 30s in Srinagar, and he was like a fatherly friend to me. I named my eldest son after him, Raja Karim Khan, and this is a gilded crown, basically silver, and then gilded and made in Srinagar on behalf of the royal family, and they were copying such kind of crowns also in Nagar. So locally in the Karakoram, only in this principality, we have royal crowns, modeled after Iranian crowns, unique, after the last Sasanian rulers. There was an ideology of kingship in ancient Iran, and therefore this dynasty in Nagar, they were proud to be descendants of the last Sasanian rulers. At least this is their myth, their mythology. This is what they believe, of course. And here in the royal attire. Next, please. And the same gentleman, Raja Karim Khan, with a falconry, was especially famous in East Turkestan, in Yarkand. And I found a Baznama, a book for handling falcons, also in Nagar. So that is part of that. Polo playing, for instance. Polo ground you have here in Ladakh, it has many similarities. And a hall of audience where the ruler was giving his decisions, receiving his ministers and his mayors from the different villages. Next, please. Yeah. This is the artificial terraced settlements on that side towards the south, Nagar, and here on lower down this is Hunza, and always having these fairy mountains, the Rakaposhi, they are literally settling there. And this river, this deep cut Hunza Nagar river, is then flowing towards the Indus, towards the river Indus. So, next please. Yeah, and that you see this nice, fantastic system, and then you have the blossoming of the buckwheat. So wheat, buckwheat, barley, millet, and of course also potatoes later introduced. This is you can relate to that in aware about culture here as well. Next, please. Yeah, and here I wanted to show the system of artificial irrigation. We have a very small rivulet and water brought here to the field, and there is a slope, of course, and they have made such kind of lozenges where the water can flow down slowly on an equal basis, and we have these thorns against sheep and cows, so that they would not go to the fields. And very careful there. The mountain farmers here, men winnowing on the right side, women weeding there. So a traditional rural life which I could observe in the 1980s there without any outside influences. There was no jeepable road at the time I was there, not to speak of a hotel, not to speak of having any kind of daba for finding chai or so. Tourism developed later, particularly in Hunza, because of this story and myth of longevity. So there was a jeepable road built in the 40s, 50s, and then the Karakoram highway finished in the 70s, which is connecting Pakistan with China. Next, please. And of course, in addition to agriculture, we have keeping of livestock, cows of a smaller mountain sort of animals, and then goat and sheep is very important. High pasture lands, so the combined architecture, combined high mountain farming. But next please, equally important is arboriculture, fruits of every sort, apples, whatever you can name it. Not melons, of course, in these high mountain areas, but apricots. As I said, 32 varieties, and they use it in all kind of food, not only fresh. The oil is definitely used, and then every variety has its own name and related to a Balti princess, or to a prince, or to a farmer migrating from Baltistan in this mountain area of Nager and Hunza. Next. Crafts are always important. Carpenters, weavers, and they have these kind of looms, and they are weaving what they call in local language filam, patu, also of different varieties. In one village in Nagar, I even found the rearing of silkworms. They had mulberry trees, and they were producing silk in a very simple basis. We should not forget, here we are at the center of the trade, nodal point of trade here in Leh, where silk was brought from the north, from Turkestan area, and wool was coming from Rupshu area, and you know it much better than me, and the wool was then, of course, woven into pashmina and chatus and all that in Kashmir. Next please. But these craftsmen, these carpenters, many of them, like the goldsmith said, hum Kashmiri hai. They are from Kashmir, called Kashmiri Ting in that area. So they were also coming from Kashmir, from outside. The sewing of woolen cap for men, and women were also wearing such caps of a much simpler kind for a certain while. But next please, we have the art, next, of embroidery. These are women caps, like pillow hat, and then embroidered with either with silk or with cotton in different colors. And this kind of fashion was finally introduced in the late 18th century because there was intermarriage between the royal family of Hunza and people from the Pamir Tajik area, from Badakhshan, and trade relations also to East Turkestan, to Xinjiang, what is today Xinjiang, to Kashgar, Yarkand. And these kind of influences of, people saw that the princesses from Badakhshan, they were wearing such caps, and the noble women copied this kind of style, and even then the local women did it. Nowadays the young generation of girls are not wearing these caps anymore, they simply wear a chadar and a cap, a veil. But they're very beautiful. We have a fantastic collection from this area, and this, what you say, Tashi, Museum Fünf Kontinente, matla 5 Continents Museum. It was our state Museum of Ethnography, staatliches Museum für Völkerkunde. Darf ich auch mal auf Deutsch einige Worte, I say a few words because we have a guest from Germany as well. Staatliches Museum für Völkerkunde München, which was named later on. There's also that kind of strange trend in Germany to rename institutions because certain older terms are not considered correct probably anymore, or so whatever. Next please. And that was a fantastic event for me to be able to participate in 2022 at the famous new Elbphilharmonie in Hamburg. And I was so surprised that they were inviting Nager and Hunza, a very famous local singer. There were 7 ladies, and the gentleman of Nager and who is sitting here also with his woolen cap, he was accompanying the singing, the songs, the Sufi songs, which Nager and was playing, and the ladies and girls were accompanying each other with playing the daf. How is that? That is in English, the daf is called as a kind of frame drum, you can say. Frame drum, the daf, and the gentleman plays the rubab, the short-necked lute, famous from Afghanistan, actually. Next, please. Very moving. And yeah, one of the best pieces I ever collected for our museum is that pouch from Naga on the left, kept in a royal family of Naga. And imagine that on 1 square centimeter of that pouch used for cosmetics, there were 110 stitches embroidered with silk. And in motifs also related to Badakhshan ornaments. And that was a kind of sampler, which was hard to collect. And there were even motifs influenced from Tibetan, Chinese culture as well. There were always cultural relations. That is not such a remote area. I mean, it was in many ways closed for a long time for, unlike the trade here in Leh, which were more influences going through this historic town here, but on a much smaller scale there were cultural relations as well. Next please. Yeah. And we have the crafts of the gold and silversmiths, mostly from Kashmiri background, and then the blacksmith. It is absolutely necessary for forging the agricultural tools, plowshares, and in ancient times also swords, of course, weapons as well. And, next please. Jewelry. Also a nice collection of jewelry. This is the characteristic triangular motif. Which also here this kind of Kashmiri pinjra called, full of silver. This piece was worn by a princess from Naga, and I put this ideal for an anthropologist. He can take down the name of the craftsman, the name of the lady who was wearing it. Fantastic possibility. Next please. And Uyun Nagar is the old capital of that small state. We have bird-shaped fibulas from Hunza. I mean, there is the avoidance of figural motifs, and in Islamic art, what we know, also in folk art, we have just stylized animal motifs like these birds. It's this ancient idea of the bird sitting on the tree of life, which we find in the Middle East and ancient Iran already, but it's found also recently. I mean, this is jewelry made in the middle of the 20th century, maybe in the 1930s, 1940s, 1960s, from Hunza. Hunza is that kingdom called after Huns. Huns is the arrow, the name for arrow. Yeah. And those were the people from Hunza were the robbers of the caravans going around East Turkestan. They were moving to Kashgar. In between they were catching the caravans, plundering them. They were, if you look into the books in Ladakh also, I saw, there is the danger of being robbed by the Ganjut people. The Ganjut people are the Hunza people, not the Naga people. Naga people had no access to these passes, high mountain passes. These were the Ganjuti raiders. I mean, if we meet them today, they are very peaceful, very friendly. But they had only a limited range of resources, so they had to rely on it. Nomads become robbers and plunderers if there are no other economic chances for them. This is also in Balochistan and wherever we see them. Next, please. And then it might be interesting for all of us here. On the left, we have such a silver pectoral. In my opinion, it resembles the stupa or chartan motif, which we also find in local wood carving in Hunza in the mosques. Buddhism was there in the second half of the first millennium AD, and even in Nagar there is one place, there were the remnants of a stupa. So Buddhists were there. Buddhist pilgrims went there, came here and there, up and down, and they have left their names on the famous rock carvings of the Indus, in the Indus Valley. There are large stones with the names of Buddhist pilgrims. Next, please. And these are such kind of small mosques, just a veranda and a small square prayer room in one of the most ancient villages, Ganesh, Altit, Baltit. You might remember our trips there. Next, please. So, and this is from the Baltit fort. It could be from here as well, from Lamo or from the palace. No? Very similar in effect. And these wooden turned wonderful bowls and wooden boxes with stylized animal motifs. Next, please. Yeah. I wrote a separate article with a colleague of mine on this particular box, and we have, for instance, the ibex, different ibex, Steinbock here in German, and then these two, more peacocks, the peacock. And inside, in the body of the peacock, we have the snake. So there is that legend somehow. I think I don't need that. There is that popular myth that the peacock brought the snake into the paradise somehow. So that's in his stomach. He was eating it. He is known as the snake killer also. So he brought the snake, and so Adam and Eve were in danger of the snake because the peacock actually brought it to paradise at the time of a motive which is migrant motive, not originally from Hunza or Naga, but brought from the outside through cultural contact. Next, please. And such wonderful relief work. There's a small box for jewelry, and the great workmanship. One really has to praise it. Fantastic. It has a tactile, haptic experience to move your hands and fingers across such wonderful made boxes. Next, please. And I show you something on the architecture there, and as there are no Buddhist temples there, but we have mosques, simple mosques, and in Naga, really very beautiful Shia assembly halls. Created in Miko Kan is a fortified village. There were villages because there was infighting between Hunza and Naga. There were always these, before the pacification by the British people, they brought there in the late 19th century, this area was conquered by the British colonial empire, and in this whole Gilgit game, so to speak, the whole colonial game. And so therefore, before this pacification by the British, we had fortified villages with watchtowers, with gates which were closed, walls, and therefore this word kan means fortification, like court also, or in the Gortahan area. Next, please. What can I say? Wonderful. Doors are somehow always, an auspicious thing. If you enter a house, you can just see it here, how entrances here are decorated, protected. So it should ward off the evil entrances, definitely, and it should be auspicious. Sometimes people in South Asia, to Afghanistan, they put a horseshoe above the door, very simple, and you have these floral carvings, writings even here, Shia words of wisdom, so to speak. And I've just done an article on Punjabi doors, on the varieties in the Punjab, East and West Punjab, to decorate doors. It's an interesting subject, definitely, and not so well researched among those interested in the material culture. Next, please. A detail of wood carvings, which is also sometimes found in embroidery as well. Flowers, flower pots, and then here a picture, wonderful, of Hazrat Ali and Imam Hussein and Hassan, and with Ali Kambar as well. So I was in the morning, I went to Balkang here, this area of Leh, and to see the Balti people there. Yes. Next, please. Apricots. This is one of, I told you in the beginning I was interested in the history, in the tradition. And Apricots means we, the people of Nagar. And this gentleman was the one and only person I met during all my work there, wearing this old woolen libas, this old dress, not shalwar kameez as today, but rough woolen. He had a bow also there, old cap. And my colleague and interpreter and helper from a noble family smoking a hookah of the local style, made of walnut wood, and smoking the hookah. Water pipe. Next, please. Musicians. necessary, of course, for every game of polo playing. Polo playing is coming, probably I'm right or wrong, some say it came from Iran. Baltistan is, I think, definitely very important. I learned that here in Chushot, people are very fond of that polo playing also. Here the polo ground is now a parking space. And what they have done to all the polo grounds in Naga villages, and in every village there was a polo ground, in every village. Because playing polo was connected with the agricultural feasts. The feasts, sowing, harvesting, was always introduced by the king. There was feasting, there were banquets, eating meat, slaughtering sheep and goat, and then at the end there was polo playing. And the king himself, he had to be a good polo player. That was important. And every polo game definitely accompanied by music. Without it would be impossible to play. These international rules and all that, there's a different game. But this kind of passion aroused by playing this surna and the door and come on, next please. And that was taken by a colleague of mine, and they were singing the Kisar Mimas, because the Kisar epic, Kesar epos, this famous saga, the famous epos, known so well in Iran, in Ladakh. Kisar is known in Baltistan as well, and in Naga especially. So I could record it also. There were people in the long winter nights, they were narrating, they were epic singers presenting the Kisar. And here they are singing, I have to excuse, Nohas. So these are, of course, laments mourning the death of Imam Hussein. Next, please. Women working in the fields, of course, to show the female life a bit. At least it was closed for me, being a male researcher, definitely. Next, please. But this photograph was taken by my wife in Ascodas, and we were there in 2019. So I think one can relate, and very similar people are living also in Ladakh. I think there would be there's a common ground, I think. Next, please. And that was an event because Nagar is called, this state of Nagar, micro-state, the land of gold and apricots. Why? Because that Nagar river is especially rich in gold. And gold dust was also a tribute which had to be paid to other rulers to be handed over. And there is such a small nugget, very small, of gold at the Nagar river. People coming, locals had to pen gold, there were gold penners, that was a tax levied by the king. So poor people had to go to the river and to give donations. Later on, people from the south took it over. Next, please. And that was a shot from field work with the gold penners at the Nagar river. So this is how field work going on. And Hamara Aziz Beta, Mila Nadim, who is just here, he was accompanying me there, my wife, with my family once at least. It was very nice. Enjoyed meeting these people who are usually stigmatized, of course. People who are looking down, as unfortunately everywhere, but they had a very good heart, very hospitable. Next, please. And on the other side, me Nagerkuts, they are we, the people of Hunza, Mir Hunzakuts. So a friend who, by the way, is the curator of the Baltic Form Museum, a little bit related maybe to Lamo. He was invited to Munich and he was staying for a couple of weeks with us in Munich. And one person, and here also, people of Hunza. Next, please. Women on the Hunza side are more free. They don't have to veil. They are Ismaili, followers of His Highness the Aga Khan. Ismailis are very much into education, and so women have a very strong position there, and they invest a lot of efforts and do a lot of relief work as well. Next, please. This is just an impression of village life how it was there, and still at some point. Next, please. The dances. Even the shaman, there was also not only this official Islam from the Shia side or Ismaili side, but the indigenous religion was based on the belief in fairies, in superhuman beings, in demons as well. So we can think of the Burn religion in Ladakh, anyway, these kind of Burn influences in religion over here. And there was a shaman who was, as his personal relations to fairies and could interact with them. But here's a dance at the royal fort in Baltic. Next, please. And finally, as you see this book at the foot of the fairy mountain, there's a kind of monograph written after so many years, and then a book, The Arts and Crafts of the Hunza Valley, about the living traditions. Thanks a lot for your attention. Thanks a lot for your company.